Every few years, the cycling world gets very excited. Shimano launches a new Dura-Ace group set, their flagship product designed specifically to meet the exacting demands of the world's best bike racers, and that then defines the look of the world's best bikes for the following few years. Well, the time has come to get excited again. The time has come for new Dura-Ace. The big question though is always, just how on earth have Shimano made it even better this time? Here are your headline stats. Dura-Ace is now 12 speed. Shifting is now wireless. Shifting is now even faster. The ergonomics of the levers have been changed. The disc brakes have improved modulation and run quieter. There is still a rim brake option. There's a whole suite of new wheels, and it still looks absolutely awesome. After all that, where do we start? With the wireless bit, I think. So the shifters now communicate wirelessly with the rear derailleur, which is now the receiver. You can see though, that is hardwired into the front derailleur, and then both are wired into the same battery that's mounted in the seat post. The reason for that, partly due to the battery life, so Shimano say this will go 1,000 kilometers between charges, but also so they can get enough power out to get that trademark Di2 functionality, particularly from that front derailleur. The Di2 junction box has now gone. Instead, all of that functionality has been built into the rear derailleur. So this is where you charge that seat post mounted battery. There's also the LED indicator light there to tell you about battery life and so forth. There's an AMP Plus receiver and transmitter in there, so it can communicate with third-party apps, as well, of course, being able to communicate with Shimano's eTube app as well, which allows you to customize the functionality of the group set. The shifters, meanwhile, have little coin cell batteries in them that Shimano say will last about 1.7 years, approximately. Now, there is a fully wired option as well, which apparently will increase your battery life by about 50%. So I guess that might be handy if you're riding around the world or something. But Shimano actually point to e-bikes as another possible application for that one. Interestingly though, there is no mechanical shifting option now on new Dura-Ace. Shimano is saying that the reason for that is that because Dura-Ace is about building the best possible group set that they can for racing, having a mechanical option just isn't really compatible with that aim. It's simply not as good as Di2, so it is no more. Now, once your bike is set up, you won't necessarily notice that it's wireless all the time, particularly in this world of internal cable routing. But what you will notice, what you'll feel in fact, are a whole raft of other changes. In particular, the speed of shifting. Anyone who has ever been lucky enough to ride a Di2 equipped bike will already know how insanely fast and precise the shifting is. But Shimano have managed to make it even faster, they say. By changing some of the internals and the derailleurs, they've sped up the front shifting by 45% and 48% at the back. That's less than 1/10 of a second and less than 2/10 of a second for your front shifting. Faster moving derailleurs is only part of the equation though. Shimano have now just introduced Hyperglide Plus onto the road. So this is technology that was first debuted on their flagship XTR mountain bike group set. By all accounts, it takes shifting performance up another level. So right back in the 80s, Shimano invented Hyperglide, which was basically ramps and variable teeth profile on the cassette that sped up and improved shifting performance. Hyperglide Plus
takes it on another level. The ramps and profiles have changed to further speed up and smooth out both up and downshifts. And it's not just the cassette, the chain has also changed. So the internal profile of it is quite significantly different.
Shimano say that it'll now shift under heavy load. There's no need to back off from an acceleration or time an easy pedal stroke to facilitate the chain moving across the sprockets or the chain rings. Let's see, shall we? It's not bad. Oh my God, that is freaking mental.
We're quite a long way into the video now, and you'll notice that I only mentioned that new 12th sprocket once so far. I mean, I guess when you've already got 11, how significant is one more? Well, potentially, I think very, because what's interesting is what Shimano have chosen to do with it. They've worked on refining the gear ratios at the lower to middle end of the cassette, what they're calling the racing sweet spot. So on the 11 to 28 cassette option and the 11 to 30 cassette option, there's now a 15, a 16 and a 17 tooth sprocket. And these are the kind of gears that you're using at about 37 to 44 k's an hour, which is peloton speed. And so you can now always find a comfortable cadence when you're sat in the bunch. There is, as you might imagine, also a wider ratio cassette option as well, an 11 to 34, 34 being the largest sprocket that this rear derailleur can handle. Now you might have noticed that Shimano are sticking with an 11 tooth as the smallest sprocket available. Why? Well, very simply, drivetrain efficiency. So they've looked at all the data out there that shows that larger sprockets are more efficient than smaller sprockets. And while you can still get a 50-34 chain set or a 52-36 like I've got here, the racing chain set has actually grown to a 54-40 for exactly the same reason. So how many watts are you going to save by using 54-15 instead of 53-14? Well, potentially a couple, and any saving is a good saving, so it seems like a smart move. And bear in mind as well that racing speeds are getting ever higher, so having a 54 also makes sense too.
Before we get on to answering some more burning questions, one of the most important things about any new group set is the lever ergonomics. Because whilst you might change gear every couple of minutes, the chances are you're going to be hanging onto your levers all of the time. Now, I'll be honest, I marvelled at the previous version of Dura-Ace in how Shimano engineers had managed to fit everything in such a small space. But over the last development cycle, Shimano say they've been listening to feedback from their pro athletes and also observing how they ride and how they race. And they've made some changes. So they've extended the lever body by 4.6 millimeters to give a little bit more space for 3 fingers behind it. They've also extended the top of the lever hoods and angled them inwards to give another aero hand position. Now, despite the longer lever body, the lever blade is still close to the bars, but they have got that reach adjust, remember, so that riders with smaller hands can bring those lever blades with an easy reach of the drops. And finally, the shift buttons have also changed. So they've been lengthened to make it easier to shift when in the drops. And they've also increased the differentiation between both up and down shift buttons, so that now it's much easier to make a shift when you're wearing winter gloves or you've got cold, wet hands.
Pad clearance is increased by 10% to make setup easier and make rotor rub even less likely. And they've also changed the rotor, you'll notice, and that's to reduce deformation of the rotor under heat buildup. So previously, when you braked really hard for a really long time and then let go of your brakes, you might hear the occasional noise as the rotor caught against the pads. And that's because under heat, the rotor had warped slightly, and then that noise went away as it cooled and straightened out. So this now guards against that. Interestingly as well, Shimano have also changed the lever feel. So the brakes come on ever so slightly sooner in the lever pull, but then the control zone, they call it, so the squeezability of the lever has increased to improve modulation. There is still so much to tell you. The front derailleur has been changed significantly, not just functionally to make it faster, but also, as you can see, it's been made significantly smaller. So it's slightly lighter, aesthetically even better, but the frontal area has been reduced by 33%, making it, yes, more aerodynamic. At racing speeds, that is going to make a difference. You might be wondering how Shimano have added that extra 12th sprockets to the free hub, given that there would clearly be implications if they just bolted it on the end and made everything wider. But no, brilliantly, the new 12-speed cassettes will still fit on the old 11-speed free hub bodies. However, there is a new design. Shimano have changed what is, I think, nearly a 40-year-old design. You can see if I remove part of the cassette. So in order to increase the contact area between cassette and free hub body, you can see there's now a splined design here. It's not micro spline, which Shimano use on their mountain bike free hub bodies. It's a larger diameter than that, but it kind of works on the same principle. And despite all of those splines, as I said, this new cassette will still fit on the old 11-speed free hub body, which I think is brilliant. However, be careful, because old 11-speed cassettes will not fit on this new spline design. Power meter time, still an optional extra, dual-sided, accurate to just 1.5%, and also it's got built-in temperature compensation as well.
And then there's the wheels too. So much here to say, so much in fact that we've got a whole video on the subject coming just a couple of days after this one. But if you can't wait, here are your top line stats. There are 3 new wheel depths, a C36, a C50 and a C60. They are lighter, they're more aerodynamic. There's a new freewheel design and they're also stiffer too, particularly in the case of the C60. It has a different spoke pattern, it's got different spokes, and it's designed for big, powerful sprinters. There are 2 versions of each, tubeless and tubular. The tubeless versions are 21mm wide internally, and the tubular tyres shed even more weight. The C36 disc brake tubular is just 1,153 grams for the pair.
Which brings me neatly on to the weight of new Dura-Ace. So Shimano are quoting, for a group set, not including wheels, 2,506 grams, which is a slight increase over the previous version of 21 grams. So the disc rotors and calipers are slightly lighter, the front derailleur and the chain as well, slightly lighter, and of course, don't forget you've got rid of the junction box and a load of wires too. The increase, fractional increase from that new 12th sprocket. There's also a little bit more material in the chain sets. Shimano have added that, they say, to further improve power transfer. So the power meter version is 53 grams heavier, the non-power meter version is 66 grams heavier, and also the new levers add a tiny amount of weight on as well. Aesthetically, I don't think there's quite as much of a shift, if you pardon the pun, as when Shimano went from Dura-Ace 9000 to Dura-Ace 9100. And personally, I'm really glad they've retained this sleek black finish. I absolutely love it. Do make sure you let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below, not just about the aesthetics, but the whole group set, in fact. And remember that if you want more on the new Shimano Dura-Ace and Ultegra, we've got that launch video for you where we spoke with a Shimano engineer, and Awlee has also got a video where he does a deep dive into the whole wheel range as well. It's really good.